Campbell is a great influence on me, I'm going to say. And Campbell's big idea was the hero's journey. And I think this is a kind of a model to understand life, to understand religion, and that's how he sort of applies this to religion, to understand what a religious doctrine is. And that's one of the first big questions as one discovers oneself as gay, and the religions say you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to be this way. Well, so where do I fit into this? The hero's journey is a pattern in the collective unconscious. In fact, maybe it's the main pattern. Campbell calls it the monomyth, the basic myth. The point of understanding this is to feel alive in the great web of life. Spirituality is about understanding things in the larger view, the big picture. I'm going to talk about the concept of the hero's journey, about a specific gay hero journey that shows up in individual lives, and also in the history of the movement. Y'all have been around a long time, many of you. We're all getting up there, aren't we? And so we have seen the stages of the movement. And I'm going to suggest how to understand all this as a spiritual quest for a kind of enlightenment that arises from the consciousness created by being gay, queer. Now these days we say LGBTQIA+. There are a lot of new words and new connotations in that umbrella, LGBTQIA+. They exist today because of the exploring and creating that's been going on since the start of the gay rights movement in 1950 with the founding of the Mattachine Society. These don't have to be competitive or confrontational. Although, part of the experience in the gay movement, I bet you've seen this too, is that every one of the factions sort of thinks it's the right faction and it should be the one that gets first, and we'll argue over who should be first. One of the versions of this, have you seen, is, quilt bag, which puts gay at the very end. Well, the pattern of the hero journey is start, rise a little, fall a little, run into obstacles, overcome them, rise a little more, fall more, be brave, overcome fear and resistance, have a great adventure and success, discover a secret or find a treasure, then relax, then come home bringing boons. Boons are gifts. Good fortune. A boon is something good that happens for you. Funny word, but it's the technical word that. So this is the story we all know of Dorothy in the Wonderful Land of Oz, and making the discovery of who the wizard really was, and therefore being empowered and able to come home with a new vision of her own home. It's the story that hunters have told around the fire when they've come in from the hunt, or warriors from the battle. And this has been going on for 150,000 years. It gets built into the human psyche. It's also the pattern of human sexual arousal. Seduction, overcoming obstacles, beginning foreplay, going into the altered state of passion, intromission, rising, holding back, rising, holding back, rising, release, gradual decline, withdrawal, and afterglow. That's the hero journey. We've experienced that in other ways. During any specific episode in life, it describes how we face events and resolve problems. It's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief: denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. Just like with the stages of grief, it helps to understand that you're going through a process. And over a lifetime, it appears as the stages of psychological and personality development and maturation in each person's life. We all go through something like this as the experience of our lives. And of course, it is the basic pattern for all stories, from fairy tales to great literary novels, folk stories to TV and movie dramas. Every episode of every TV show, from comedy to cop thriller, is structured by a plot that follows what this literary editor Scott Meredith called the plot skeleton, and that Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. And as Joseph Campbell specifically observed in his masterwork, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, it is the basis of all religion and myth, all saviors, gods, and cosmogonies. Some of you may know that I only partly tongue-in-cheek fancy myself Joseph Campbell's apostle to the gay community. It isn't so much Joseph Campbell in particular that I want to champion, though he was in fact a wonderful fellow and a nice guy, and he was very kind to me and friendly and open, and I carried on a correspondence with him over a 10-year period, and was part of the crew that worked his appearances in the Bay Area all through the 70s when I was I lived in San Francisco in the 70s. But I mention him because he has popularized this comparative religions approach, looking at religion from over and above, and he was my personal entry into this. By happy chance, I got Joseph Campbell himself as the wise old man of my own personal hero journey. As I say, I was part of that team in Northern California and carried on these wonderful, mostly handwritten letters. I have his letters to me. I don't have my side to him. I sort of wonder when I look at this, what in the world did I write to him in all those letters? A lot of it was telling him how much I liked what he wrote. And he liked, let me go off on an aside for a minute. Campbell liked the attention of young men. He taught at a girls' college,
St. Lawrence.
Sarah Lawrence College. So all of his students were women. He and his wife did not have children, so he had no son or sons. So he liked the attention of young men who would be like surrogate sons. I was certainly not anything like a surrogate son, but just young men who. My friend through whom I knew him, Barbara McClintock, she was sort of his secretary on the West Coast. She used to joke that Joe had this set of what she called the golden-eyed boys, who would tell him how much they loved what he wrote, and he just loved that attention from. So I was one of Joe's bright-eyed boys. Well, here's his model of the hero journey. Let's look at this. In a way, you'll recognize that you know all this. This is not new, but maybe structuring it this way, as calling it the hero journey, is a kind of a new way to see it. Anyway, this is what Campbell is all about. The mythological hero, setting forth from his common-day hut or his castle, is lured, carried away, or else voluntarily proceeds to the threshold of adventure. There he encounters a shadow presence that guards the passage. The hero may defeat or conciliate this power and go alive into the kingdom of the dark, or be slain by the opponent and descend into death. Beyond the threshold, then, the hero journeys through a world of unfamiliar yet strangely intimate forces, some of which severely threaten him, some of which give magical aid. When he arrives at the nadir of the mythological round, the bottom of the pit, he undergoes a supreme ordeal and gains his reward. The triumph may be represented as the hero's sexual union with the goddess mother of the world, his recognition by the Father Creator, his own divinization, or again, if the powers have remained unfriendly to him, his theft of the boon he came to gain. Intrinsically, it is an expansion of consciousness and therewith of being. The final work is that of return, If the powers have blessed the hero, he now sets forth under their protection. If not, he flees and is pursued. At the return threshold, the transcendental powers must remain behind. The hero reemerges from the kingdom of dread. The boon that he brings restores the world. Think the Wizard of Oz as opposed to anything as highfalutin as this hero stuff sounds. So the labyrinth is a potent symbol of that journey inward and back outward again. Have you walked a labyrinth? You know, this interesting experience of going back and forth. You move along a tortuous, winding path on which you often do not know whether you are walking forward or backwards, toward or from your goal. In the midst of it, you can feel lost and alone and helpless. The hero journey, however, is not a maze. The path is known, says Campbell. And this is at the intro credit. You know, the way that most of us know Joseph Campbell is through watching that TV show, The Power of Myth, with Bill Moyers. And at the beginning of every show, they have Campbell reading this little thing. We have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of our hero path. Mm-hmm. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we will come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. I wonder what Campbell meant by abomination. The word, of course, means simply a taboo violation. Something in today's teen slang we'd call gross, like picking your nose in public. But it is so often specifically applied to sexual variance. And its old-time biblical sound has made it seem especially egregious and offensive, even though it's just the opposite. Did Joseph Campbell understand that within homosexual experience we shall find a God? I don't know. Whatever he meant, we can certainly affirm that meaning for ourselves.